the feeling of joy, the feeling of togetherness, the actual experience is inside of us. You love the people around you. That's something to do with you. You hate the people around you. That has something to do with you. The mind is the place where all of reality is experienced, all of it. Everything you feel, everything you think, every experience is processed by the mind. You can get to work with that and amplify the goodness of your mind just by staying on meditating.
Hector.
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
Same. Nice smile.
We don't know each other, but you look as such an enigmatic person, as such an enigmatic teacher. And
thank you.
I've been following you on social media for some time, and you look like a person who makes meditation juicy.
I try. I try.
And
thank you.
you're actually glowing. You know, I look at you and you're like a bulb.
Thank you.
You're brighter than the lamp behind you, which is weird. The first question I would like to ask you is about your journey. How did you become a meditator? I guess first you became a meditator and then you became a teacher. I doubt that it became vice versa.
Yeah.
Please share it. I guess it's a crazy story.
So it's interesting because I don't see myself as a teacher, but I know I have to do that because I know some things about meditation. And so people keep asking me about meditation, and the idea of teacher has all these stupid associations in my mind, you know, and I definitely don't see myself that way, but I also understand the responsibility that comes in a human life. When you know something, I think there's a responsibility to be able to share that with other people who could use that. And in that respect, yeah, I think I teach people meditation. I wish I could teach them better so they don't have to take 23 years to have the experiences. They can maybe have it in 5 or 3. And meditation was actually the first thing that hooked me into trying to understand why our human experience, why our human condition appears a certain way, and you never know exactly how to fix it. You know, in my early 20s, like most people in their early 20s, when you get some kind of independence, I'm out in the world and I'm going to be a famous guitarist or a famous musician. I'm going to find a family or find love or whatever people wish for in their 20s. It has this promise that if you get that, you will be happy. And we place our hopes in the things outside of ourselves all the time. It's like, imagine getting a little bubble of hope and gluing it to different things in your world, to girlfriend, boyfriend, job, career, title. And so you give of yourself this hope that over there, if I find that thing, then I'm going to be happy, or then I'm going to feel fulfilled, or then I'm not going to feel stressed. I'm going to feel at ease. And like everyone, I was doing that in the 90s. And of course, the answer is you can never find it out there, because the state of happiness, the feeling of joy, the feeling of togetherness, the actual experience is inside of us. Yes, it comes when you kiss your partner. Yes, it comes sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't. Yes, it comes when you eat, you know, a great meal. You get this bliss and joy, and then it disappears. You know, and then sometimes, if someone forces you to eat that meal 20 times, it disappears quickly. So there's something in our experience, and there's also this illusion that the world holds some power over our experiences. And that's a mistake. Now, I didn't know that in my 20s, but in our 20s, our minds are so good in our 20s. We are wanting to investigate everything, and we want a taste of everything. And I think that's a great thing in that age group. You know, you're still trying to understand reality, but there's always an undercurrent of, I'm lost. I really don't know. This hurts. And sometimes we fall victim to that. And that was me in my 20s. I think even a little worse, I was stubborn in my 20s. I think many people are stubborn. So I wanted to figure things out for myself, you know, and everyone was stupid and I was right, even though I didn't know anything, you know, like I know everything and you don't know anything, but I really don't know anything. So you're stupid. You know, it makes no sense, but really that was my way of being in my 20s. Sorry about the New York sirens in the background. Someone's having a bad
soundtrack.
time. Yeah, exactly. Welcome to New York. And so with that background, I'm living my life as a migrant child in Australia. So I was born in Argentina. My parents couldn't feed us, 4 of us, and they moved to Australia when I was 10. And that was very traumatic. I didn't speak the language. I was lost. I was a victim of prejudice and racism and all those things. And I quickly learned how to get around that. And that's another story for another day. But on that background, I looked for ways to make my life meaningful. And so in my 20s, I decided, instead of going to university, to backpack around the world. And that would be my university. If I could see what people lived like in Asia, in South America, in Europe, in America, then I would know a possible way for me to live my life. Now, I didn't tell people that, but really that's what I was looking for. I was looking for examples of a happy human life before I decided to waste 4 years to become a professor, an educator, or anything at the university. And so in that search, I only took one friend with me in the form of a book, and her name was Ayn Rand. I don't know if you know her philosophy.
I think I know her book, but I have never read it. I should read it.
It's a very interesting thing. If your mind is strong enough, you should. She's all about capitalism, and she decided that the world is made up of people, that some are very special people, the producers, the people that make industry, the creators of things, and everyone else is a problem. They're leeches. They suck the blood out of the industrialists. The stupid workers can't think for themselves, so they suck the energy out of the brilliant people that invented trains and buildings and so on. And then she's got this crazy philosophy. It's about capitalism, you know? And so she's saying that only those clever people in the world are the ones that are worthy of taking care of. Everyone else is sort of stupid, needy. And really, she makes very good arguments for that, you know? And I carried her around trying to live her philosophy. Worse than the stupid people that leech off the industrialists, what she calls the thugs, she calls them. And this is the police force, the military, the people that can't think clever, so they got to use force to get their way. Most of us work to get our way. We'll go and leech off the industrialists, but then these thugs, they use force to pressure people to do what they want. This is her philosophy, okay? And then even worse than that is the witch doctors. She says it's the witch doctors, the religious people who change and influence the mind of the thugs, the muscle, the military, and the workers, just to get all that good things that the industrialists make for us. And that's the only way the world works, according to her. Now, in my 20s, that was very impressionable for me. I'm like, I have to be an industrialist. I don't want to be a leech or a witch doctor or anything like that. And so it was very hard for me to try and live that philosophy, because obviously that's not reality. That's just one view. But that's what had gotten in my mind. Now, I didn't forget your question. I'm a child of a migrant family, lost in a world that they didn't understand, not good at English, not good at reading, not very clever, didn't go to university, you know? So I'm backpacking around the world with these ideas that I wouldn't admit. So instead, I take this philosophy that's trying to make me number one and everyone else stupid, yeah? So with that state of mind, I'm 20-something, reading these books, and I'm having my own life. Now, there were some other nice things in my life at the time, but that was my main thing, backpacking and looking how people live their lives. I was trying to test this philosophy. I don't know, it was early 90s. I landed in New York, ran out of money. The whole philosophy is breaking down very quickly. I have to be a leech now. But at least I was going to be a good leech and find out how to get money. Anyway, I end up moving to New York, fast forward a few years, and I found this book in the basement of an old building, and it was a really old book. It was a whole series of books, and there's this one book that looked the oldest. And I went to that one to try and make money, because if I sold it, maybe like I'm 20, finding a book to sell, you know, just to try and live in New York. And the book was titled Secret Teachings of Tibetan Buddhist Sects. I'm like, whoa, secret, very special. You know, so I have this precious book that's going to make me money. I'm an industrialist. And Rand would be happy. I'm trying to make money out of old books. And so I didn't know how to sell a book, but it was a special, rare book. And then eventually I forgot about it and it sat on my bookshelf for a year. And through the course of that year, a bunch of very strange things began to happen to me based on stress of trying to live in America, and my legal status was about to finish. I was about to become illegal and I had to choose, do I leave or do I stay? And this pressure began to manifest in the form of dreams and sadness, depression. And in the dreams, it was all about death. I was going to die. My family was going to die. This is the 90s, before internet, before international phone calls were cheap. So I had to live my life here in New York, trying to make ends meet, whilst my family and friends in Australia would ring me or send me letters saying, we are so proud of you. You are so successful in New York. And I wanted to keep that facade. Yes, I'm doing good, thank you. But I couldn't tell anyone I was broken. And in my mind, death and dying began to come very strongly, uncanny, not in a way that had ever happened before. It felt like some external force was forcing itself inside of me and breaking down my idea of where does happiness come from? Do I really produce my happiness, etc., etc. I found a mala, one of these beads that I wear around my neck all the time, in the middle of Fifth Avenue. The week before, I met a Buddhist group of people, and then they told me what it was, and there were all these coincidences. And then comes a day where I woke up so distraught, I couldn't go to work, and I decided I need some help, and I opened that book, Secret Teachings of Tibetan Buddhist Sects. I'm not going to work. I'm just going to read the wisdom in this book. What's the secret? And I sit there in a place called Union Square in the middle of New York City, and I try and read this book, and it's stupid. I don't understand anything. There's body, sattva, karma, emptiness. Like, I don't know anything. This is witch doctor stuff in my mind, right? So it's already stupid, and I don't know what's happening. At that time, 2 trucks pull up next to the seat that I'm seated at the park and create a whole bunch of rows for chairs. And I'm in the middle of the aisle facing a stage that they just finished creating, and it's getting darker. I think the book is stupid. So I asked the people, what are you doing? What's happening here today? Is it a concert? And they say, oh no, it's Buddha's birthday today. Every year we do a parade in one city around the world. And this year we've got visiting monks and nuns from all over the world coming to give lectures here in New York City tonight. So I closed my book.
Coincidence.
I
Magic.
know. I close my book and I stare and I listen to monks and nuns, and I don't remember anything except that that was a little strange. I'm trying to understand this Buddhist book. I don't understand it. So a Buddhist lecture panel appears in front of me, trucks and all. Fast forward the next day, and then I'm telling my friend about this as we're going to a housewarming party. And he says, we should study Buddhism, dude. He's a surfer. And I'm like, yeah. And as we are about to go to the street where a housewarming party in, there's a sign that says 3 Jewels, Tibetan Buddhist bookstore and tea house, opening night. This is 1996. Everyone's welcome. So we walk in there, instead of our housewarming party. And there's all these Buddhists, and they're all like, they're going to answer my Buddhist questions, and they couldn't. Buddhists are so annoying. I'm like, what's Buddhism? They're like, oh, it's difficult to explain. I'm like, just explain it already. Like, it was frustrating, but also a little magical. Why was that happening to me? I went next door, had a party, got very drunk. I think I took a girl home. I can't remember. And then I woke up the next morning from a most intense dream that basically said, Hector, you found your home. Your home is here. And it was a very bizarre dream with very strong iconography. And this girl that I had met at the Buddhist center was pointing in my dream to like a church or something in the middle of Manhattan called Three Jewels. And I'm like, that's a little too obvious now. The images and the messages are a little too, I can't ignore them. So I picked myself up and my pride. I put my pride aside. If I was going to go to the witch doctors, you know, I was going to go over there with my book and say, I don't know what's going on. And the first thing they said is, oh, well, we probably need to meditate. They didn't want to do anything else. Let me teach you how to meditate. And that's where my meditation journey really began, because what they said to me was, do you think that you are in control of your mind? Do you think that the mind that you have is yours? And I said, yes, of course. That's a stupid question. It's my mind. It's not your mind. He's like, okay, well, let's see if you can hold your mind on one thing for 2 minutes. I'm like, easy, stupid Buddhists. And I don't think I lasted 3 seconds. And at that time, I realized if it's not under my control, this consciousness of mine, whose control is it under? And that really began to break me, because we think, our minds, what we think, we have some ownership of that. And the reality of those 3 seconds at Three Jewels, meditating for the first time, showed me, proved to me without a reasonable doubt, that there's something else pushing my mind and experiences forward, and it wasn't me. At least not me in the moment. And so, because I was stubborn, I needed to understand what the hell was going on. And therein began my love and hate of trying to understand meditation. And as a consequence, all the philosophy that explains meditation, which, you know, in the East they call Buddhism. Buddhism really means wake up-ism, because to Buddha is the one who woke up. From the Sanskrit, Bud means to awake from a dream or an illusion. So the one, Buddha wasn't his name. His name was Siddhartha. But they called him the guy who woke up, the woke up one, Buddha. So Buddhists really mean wake upists. And it's, you know, like wake up to what you think reality is, it's not at all. The reality that I don't have a single thread of control over my mind, at least in that meditation, was very obvious. And I needed to wake up to that. I needed to Bud to that. And that became, I want to say, 2 years of trying to fight the process, prove them wrong. You know, yes, I've got control of this thing. And in that trying, I saw things about my mind and my life that were necessary to see. And it led me to begin to wake up to the reality that not only is my mind mine, but that thing that believes it's me doesn't have the nature that I think it has. There's no Hector separate to what I put into this mind that later becomes Hector. And that is a complex thing about seeds and emptiness, cause and effect. But it manifests as your reality around you, the way you engage with your world. You love the people around you. That's something to do with you. You hate the people around you. That has something to do with you. And really, you can only get a window into that in meditation. And so from finding an old book in a basement of New York and having a crazy dream that forced me to go back to that shop 23 years later, I've got this intensely beautiful and rich relationship with the essence of my mind. And I've watched it change and ebb and flow with all the tools that come with meditation. And it seems like a mistake. Yeah, like I'm so lucky to have found that mistake. And so all I want to do is I want to give people the same mistake.
A quick question. Is this book still with you?
No, a good question. So
you
this
sold
is
it.
no. I did something better, but I didn't know that it was better when I did it. Went to Three Jewels that first morning. I don't know why. I thought I have to give them something of value for them to help me. So I gave them that book. I said, look, I don't understand this crazy thing, but you maybe do. It was the first time I actually made an offering. And so there's a practice of making offerings to enlightened beings or making offerings to mentors. And you making offerings to people generate the cause of abundance in you, because the result of generosity is abundance in your own mind. And I didn't know that I had just given the most important thing I had in my hand, this book on secrets of Eastern Buddhism. And in exchange, more than money, I got 23 years of incredible experiences that transcend the very best things I thought I could have had with my 20-year-old mindset. What I've achieved, what I've gotten to taste in 23 years of trial and error through meditation and Eastern philosophy way surpass any amount of money that that book could have given me. Because whatever $20 million for that book or $3 million for that book would have been wasted on a 20-year-old Hector mind. Like I would have gotten drunk, you know, or something stupid. But instead, I got to unravel the very source of where happiness comes from and suffering can end, the essence of my mind. And that is, you can't put a price on peace of mind, like zero price on a stable, peaceful mind that understands the way reality works. Yeah.
Your name and surname are cinematic, but also your story.
Oh, thank you.
Short TV series episodes could definitely be filmed.
Yeah, actually, it's interesting you say that, because I'm a visual person. And if we ever get a chance, Dimitri, to talk separately about that dream that happened, it was very cinematic, and it had a bunch of things that I knew were metaphors, things that I didn't know about, like inside a black volcano and 3 shadow figures and a box with chains in the deep black water. The first book that I began reading after I left Three Jewels, they gave me this book called The Three Principal Paths, or the Three Principal Paths, Lamson Namsum, have that dream described as a poem, a 14-verse poem. The middle of that verse, the middle of that poem has a visual that is precisely the dream I had. And in that section, like the big message there was, don't think about yourself alone. It says, think how your mothers feel. But by mothers, they mean every other creature crawling this planet. It says, think how they feel, chained up in a steel cage of pitch black ignorance, in the 4 fierce river currents, chained up in past deeds, hard to undo, and what it means. And that was precisely the image I had in the dream, a black cage with people inside it, shadow people, hard to undo. And what it was saying, stop thinking about yourself alone, Hector. Make your practice and your life of treating other people like you would like to be treated. And there is a key and a secret to unchain yourself from the suffering of this world. And it became my practice. But I didn't know that. Like, even though that I can speak to that very clearly now, 2 years of fighting Buddhist philosophy in my mind, eventually I'm like, wow, that was that dream. Like, I didn't realize immediately after they gave me that book. It took me a while to go, what? Like my mind couldn't see it. I know.
Yeah, you went the whole circle to come back to this realization.
Yeah. Which is what
Sorry.
happens, like our minds begin to get familiar with things, and over time that familiarity makes it a reality. That's an experience you'll have in meditation. If you meditate long enough, you'll see how your meditations become your outer world. But people that meditate for a short time won't ever see that, unfortunately. But the more you do that, and the more you maintain your attention with intention, that meditating on key aspects of who you are and what you want the world to be, you will eventually see the correlation between what you did on the cushion and then the kind of people you meet, the conversations you have, the nature of what's important and what's not, finding bliss where you used to find problems. The mind is the place where all of reality is experienced, all of it. Everything you feel, everything you think, every experience is processed by the mind. And so you change the mind through meditation. You clean the lens of the obstruction or the illusion or the problem, and you can see reality for what it really is. So, and then the world outside begins to reflect what you've put in your mind. And so meditation is like the super powered tool for all creatures that think they are just human. And we are way more than that if we can access that power.
You've been meditating for 23 years and you went through all the hardships, I get. I mean, at first it was only 3 seconds of focus on one object. Can you please share, after 23 years of experience, what is meditation for you right now? The simplest explanation of what it is and how it happens.
Yeah, of course. Meditation is different now than it was 23 years ago, and it's exactly the same. Meditation is just simply, two types of meditation. Quiet the mind, settle it down. All the crazy thoughts and ideas and feelings and all the things that are in your mind need to settle down. The monkey in your mind needs to settle down. The monkey that is preoccupied with what comes in through the windows of the senses. What's happening out there through the eyeballs? So it's looking at many objects, colors and shapes, and very excited, that monkey. The monkey mind, is very excited at everything visual, everything in your ear, like what's it hearing? What are sounds? What do they mean? Everything you taste and smell and touch and feel and think. So mental and then all the senses. The mind is only experiencing reality through those things. Meditation, still to this day, is shut the windows for the monkey not to be focused on what's out there in the eyeballs, what's out there in the ears. If you go to a quiet place, very still place, wash your mouth so there's no tastes and so on, and you begin to close those windows, you should come up with mind, right? What's Dimitri? What's Dimitri's mind? If you shut the window and the monkey cannot look at what Dimitri's eyes is interested in. So Dimitri's eyes has a particular interest. Yeah, I like these shapes. I like these colors. Oh, look at that. You shut that window, monkey's bored. And so it's going to go to the ear. Go, can you listen to that truck? Do you hear the sirens? So you go to a quiet place and monkey begins to, instead of settling down, it begins to get restless. So everyone that meditates at the beginning is going to find that their minds are crazy. Like we're crazy. We're insane. And that can deter people from meditating, but keep going. Once you shut down all the windows and then the thoughts, what about tomorrow? What about depression? What about happiness? Settle that one down too. It's like a choppy lake. You've heard of this metaphor. The lake is very choppy with thoughts, and slowly just sitting your ass down and relaxing and focusing on the breath to start with settles the mind right down. Focus on just one thing, monkey. Maybe you give it a little bit of sound. Listen to the sound, monkey. Oh, good, I've got one thing. Once the mind settles down, that choppy lake that distorts reality, you can't see a good reflection on a choppy lake, makes that lake like a mirror, completely still, perfectly still, like the surface of a mirror. That's only half of meditation. And unfortunately, nowadays, people think that's all. That's meditation. That's good. It has some nice side benefits of rest, relaxation, parasympathetic nervous system, etc., etc. But that's only half of the story. Settle the mind down, and then whatever you put in front of the mind, whatever the object of your meditation becomes after the mind has settled, that's who we actually begin to identify as becoming. You put love and joy, and you will become and sense and feel love and joy, because you're covering the entire lake, your whole mind, with that flavor. You put hatred, you can do hatred. You put wisdom, understand reality, you can understand reality. And so meditation has two parts: settling the mind down, shamatha, and then get some insight about the nature of what reality is all about. And ultimately, you'll end up with this thing called insight, vipassana, the understanding of emptiness. Yeah. And then those two together function for you to be able to know how to engage with your inner and outer world. And now, nobody that told me that 20 years ago, I would have listened to. So they had to get the monkey Hector to settle down and just focus on the breath, or count your breath. And so it's like going to the gym, or running a marathon. You don't just go off and run a 3-day marathon. You start by, running, getting exhausted, and then you begin to eat better, and then you begin to do all sorts of other things that are conducive for you to run a marathon. Change your calendar. Same for meditation. Nowadays, meditation looks like I can settle the mind down fairly quickly. I've got that muscle easily. And so that takes repetition. It feels boring at the beginning, but if you go past, the results incredible, like hard to describe. What it feels to be relaxed, mentally and physically relaxed, enough to not be triggered by the world, anger, etc. But it's only halfway. There's like a rainbow on the other side of that, which lets you understand, why do you identify as this thing, this human thing? So now what I put in front of the mirror is this incredibly complex and stunning set of visualizations that come from 2,500 years ago, that takes me about 45 minutes to get in and feel and reflect. And it's like, you know what it's like? It's like getting an updated operating system for my old iPhone. It's like, imagine iPhone 3 or the first iPhone that came out gets the latest iOS, gets the latest software. And it's like, what the hell? It's amazing. And so for it to function properly, it eventually becomes the new iPhone. So these meditations are like getting an update at the software, and then the hardware begins to build itself in relation to that software. And so today's meditations, for me, work out to be that. But I'm also very fortunate that I get to teach meditation to beginners and to meditation teachers. So I'm building and maintaining the muscle of settling the mind and remembering what it takes to get your mind from here to there, from here to there. So I've got the great fortune of teaching beginners, meditators, meditation teachers, and having my own practice, which is inspired by my teachers and texts from 2,500 years ago.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Hector, what I love is that when you describe it, it's almost feasible. It's almost something you can touch. It feels like, yeah, this guy did meditate for 23 years. There is a lot of stuff that I can somehow feel, but don't understand, but feel that, okay, there is something in this direction for sure.
That's the beauty, Dimitri. Every person that has these sounds that we're talking right now in their ears, every one of them is perceiving these sounds in their mind. And their own flavor is enjoying or not liking or zoned out or excited about the words that their mind is placing on these sounds. These sounds don't have that flavor. You can get to work with that and amplify the goodness of your mind just by staying on meditating. 3 seconds turned into 2 minutes. 2 minutes. I added a minute every week became 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minutes. And now I can sit comfortably for a long time and enjoy. And everyone has that potential. You don't need money. You don't need status. You don't need anything. And you can transform your world from the inside out. It's really stunning.
Thank you, Hector. Just one last thing, something practical for the listeners. Can you please share some practice that because I'm a listener right now as well, can take into the daily life, something from the practices that you do yourself?
Yeah, Dimitri, my main practice for many years, like at least 10 of the last 20 something years, has been on this practice called Tong Len, giving and taking, exchanging yourself for other. And it's very complex. You can make it really complex, but at the core, if you're in a meditation posture, if you're seated and you've got a daily practice, and let's say you've got 10 minutes, yeah, you would settle your mind down by not moving, finding a comfortable position and not moving, focusing your mind on one thing, the breath, because it's nice tactile sensations. It gives the monkey one thing to focus on, and that settles the lake. Yeah. And then you remember the highest understanding you have of wisdom, how reality actually works. In the Eastern systems, you would say your best understanding of the concept of emptiness and where reality actually comes from, or why reality can change. And so then you imagine that in the core of your heart, as I have some understanding of how things work. So you imagine that either as a flame or a diamond or something. And so you get this visualization and this sense in your heart that you understand things, your highest understanding. And then you think of someone else who has something that they need to overcome, some suffering, some pain, something that if you could just help them with your wisdom, it would free them from suffering. And that person can be the future you, the one that has a job interview tomorrow or has to have a breakup with a girlfriend next week or whatever it is. You can imagine that person. And then in meditation, you imagine going over and appearing next to them and they can't see you. And you, through your breath, remove that suffering. It burns up in your wisdom. And in its place, you give them everything they've ever wanted and more wisdom, more love that they could ever want. And you imagine what it would be like for them to really feel at peace, joyful, and loving. Now there's more detail than that, but that you do it seated down. As a shortcut, very practical thing to do with that same philosophy is anywhere and everywhere you've got 1 minute or 3 minutes. And for New Yorkers, that's time on the subway. Everyone goes down into the subways, getting to work or to and from different places in Manhattan. And you're with all shapes and sizes. There's very strange people. There's very weird people. There's very happy people. There's screaming people. There's short, fat, ugly, beautiful, sexy, everything. And everyone has problems. Yeah. And so you sit on the subway looking like a normal person. Everybody puts their headphones on and you sit there and you imagine that these people could also be angels, could also be enlightened people, could also be Buddhas, but you are seeing them as suffering or hurting or screaming at their kid or pushing for a seat. And so in your mind, you imagine with your breath, through your inhale, removing that from them, and with your exhale, just giving them every bliss until you see them as angels that they could possibly be. And you just imagine the screaming kid going home and feeling, why did I feel so special in that subway? And you play with the imagination of changing the entire world around you into bliss and removing the suffering. And that's giving and taking. And do that day in, day out, in little minutes in traffic, in the subway, at the dinner table while everyone's arguing. It should be a secret. You do it secret in your heart, and it changes the way you look at the world. 1 or 2 weeks of that, you'll get addicted.
Thank you, Hector. Just one last stupid question about the Tong Len meditation. Is it safe to take all this stuff into my heart, into my diamond?
Question. Yeah, great question. It's actually, that's why I said it's complicated and I've got to give you lots of information. There is a technique of doing that. you imagine the suffering of people like black smoke in their bodies, and you condense it into a tiny little ball of pea, like a green pea that comes out from their nose and floats like a tiny little jail for the suffering. Yeah, a little bubble of jail, and then it appears in front of your nostril. And because suffering is actually a mistake from the ultimate nature of things, which is empty of a nature, they don't have that quality, it can be destroyed easily by wisdom. So as soon as that little black ball appears in front of your nose, you should feel like a superhero, that your understanding, your wisdom, your understanding of emptiness in particular, but the diamond in your heart or the flame in your heart is just hungry for more stupidity. The more suffering it takes on, the more you can love and understand. So in that way, it's actually feeding your wisdom, because it just ate up some garbage in the world. So then you take on this one thing, and you do have to have this visualization where you imagine it completely disappear as that black bubble comes down towards your heart with the flame or the diamond, and the diamond or the flame is sitting on a rose or a beautiful petal of some kind. Then it completely disappears from the universe. It all time and everything. And you've got to get this conception in your mind. In essence, all you're doing is making imprints in your mind to perceive that suffering is being taken away, and in its place, love and wisdom is being given and poured into everyone. So no danger at all, but you do have to be careful to make sure you see it extinguished completely and wisdom grow because of it. You just fed wisdom with a snack of ignorance. It just eats it up.
Now it makes perfect sense.
Good.
Hector, thank you. Thank you for your precious time and for everything you shared.
Yeah, Dimitri, it was my pleasure.
Thank you very much. And I hope to meet you in person one day.
Same, either in Russia or New York.
Anywhere, it doesn't matter. Why would it matter? Thank you. You are just like the essence of light. Thank you, man.
Thank you so much, Dimitri.
Thank you. I will send you all the links.
Yeah, according to Buddhism, whatever you're experiencing here comes from you. Yeah.
I hope so. I hope.
It does. It really does. Okay, bye.